Hey everybody, what's up from Pokemon Classics, reminding you all that the classics never go out of style. Today's video is a direct follow-up to my previous video talking about the sad state of the Pokemon market. Now recently, there's been a lot of frustration out there due to product unavailability as well as rampant scalping that has made this hobby not nearly as accessible or as much fun as it once was. And that's where today's video comes in, is because I don't think all hope is lost, that there are ways to rekindle that passion for collecting that many of us first entered this community with. So in today's video, I wanted to revisit that vicious cycle of negative sentiment, but then focus on how we can overcome it. Today, we're going to be taking a look at some of the different hidden gems out there of collecting, and that's one of the beautiful things, is there's always attainable sets and niche items that offer history, excitement, great artworks, and so much more. But also I wanted to talk more philosophically about the difference between price and value and how we can still find excitement, adventure, and fulfillment in collecting, regardless of what the current situation and circumstances might suggest. Anyway, guys, let's roll into this by first going back to that vicious cycle. For those of you that missed my previous video, I created this diagram analyzing 4 key factors that are all brewing in the background, contributing to one another, making this current market less desirable, less easy to navigate for both collectors and players out there. These factors include investing FOMO, and this is manifested in all the different types of content that pervades YouTube and other social media spaces as people reduce Pokemon collecting to just investment, to monetary values. Naturally, this interest in the money side of things is going to produce inaccessibility of products. This can be seen both online and in person. Online, it's aided by bot accounts where products can instantly be sold out of sites like the Pokemon Center website. Then in person, it's also equally difficult to come across product when you have massive scalping happening in person at retail stores. With the inaccessibility, this fuels into the price inflation, and I know many people out there are feeling the crunch on the wallet of not being able to afford many of the cards that they want or the products that they want due to those inflated prices on the secondary market. And finally, this opens the door for all sorts of exploitation, whether it's through greed or through a rise of scams, many of which we're seeing across the Pokemon space in YouTube videos and Instagram posts and other social media content. And thus, the cycle starts all over again, and it slowly becomes a positive feedback loop and a self-fulfilling prophecy of these negative market conditions. Now, if we want to break free from this cycle, we have to acknowledge that there's only so much control we can have over external factors. We're not able to produce more cards. That's something only the Pokemon Company can do. Nor can we control how people choose to access Pokemon products themselves using bot accounts or waiting in line and scalping products in person. But what we can always control as collectors is what items we pursue and the methods we use to pursue them. And I think the Pokemon trading card game is littered with so many unique niches that are just waiting to be explored that many collectors out there haven't fully tapped their potential and really examined some of the unique items that are just waiting to be discovered. That's what I wanted to do next, is take a look at 4 subsets that are mostly attainable cards, but also have some uniqueness behind them that make them really fascinating for collectors. One of the first sets that I find myself recommending to collectors over and over again is the original Wizards of the Coast Black Star promo set. Now, this set is made up of 53 different cards, and they all have unique releases from between 1999 to 2003. This was the heart of the Pokemon craze when it first surfaced. Now, many of these cards were distributed at Pokemon Leagues, and I personally ran a league during these years, so it brings back a lot of good memories for me on a personal level. Other of these cards, though, were released in other unique ways, whether it was packaged along with movie tie-ins, soundtracks to some of the movies, magazine distributions like Nintendo Power, or even some of the video game releases like the Pokemon trading card game or Pokemon Stadium. There's also some specifically unique events out there. One that comes to mind is the Pokemon Center in New York when it was opened, offered 2 different promo cards, and they also happen to be 2 of the most expensive and difficult to acquire ones, and that's the Lucky Stadium as well as the Pokemon Center. But there's even a create a card opportunity run through the Pokemon League where people could be awarded the Birthday Pikachu promo card, and I know that one's a fan favorite for a lot of people out there. So clearly, the Black Star promo set has a lot of unique history behind each and every one of those cards, and there are also some additional cards that not many people know about. For example, promo number 1 is a 3-dimensional Pikachu. It's called the IV Pikachu, but it also has a first edition variant, which happened to be the very first secret rare card released by Wizards of the Coast, and these were available in select jungle set packs, or at least that's the theory out there. Similarly, cards 2, 3, 4, and 5 came from the Pokemon the First movie release, and these are the WB stamp promos. However, some of them were mistakenly misprinted with the WB stamps upside down. Another misprint that a lot of people are aware of is the No HP Dark Persian, and this one came attached to a flyer along with Nintendo Power Magazine. Now, one of the points of this video is to highlight cards and sets that are actually accessible to collectors out there. And these cards have a lot of history behind them, but they're also mostly affordable, with many of these cards being well under $50 in price, and the vast majority even being under the $20 threshold. Now, there are a few expensive cards, and if you're looking to finish this set, there's going to be a little bit of challenge involved, and often that's something collectors want, is a little bit of challenge so it's not too easy. Lucky Stadium is the most expensive card, and these prices all come from TCG Player's Price Guide, and the Lucky Stadium is $620.81 as of making this video. Pokemon Center is another one that has an exclusive release at the New York Pokemon Center. This one's $539.50. Then we drop down to our only 3 other cards that are over the $100 price point in a raw near mint condition. You got the Birthday Pikachu at $125, the Venusaur, one of my personal favorites out there, and that one's $108, and then the Snorlax, which interestingly has artwork featured from one of the Pokemon illustration contests, and this one was also about $108. Anyway, for those of you who have never taken the time to explore the history and artwork behind the Wizards of the Coast Black Star promo set, I highly encourage you to visit this rabbit hole. It's a unique set, it ties into Pokemon's history, and you get a diversity of cards. It's really everything a collector could want. Next, for those looking for something similar, but perhaps less difficult and less expensive, there's always the W-stamped and pre-release promos from the Wizards of the Coast era. Now, the W-Stamp promos consist of 7 different cards that were released between 1999 and 2001, and each one of these cards features a small W stamp that's embossed into the card itself. Now, these cards were primarily released through magazines, including Top Deck magazines, and then just one of them, the Pikachu card, was originally part of Duelist magazine. These all came free with those publications. Now, there are 2 others, the Dark Charmeleon and the Dark Arbok, which were actually international releases. The Dark Charmeleon is probably the most difficult one to acquire, and this was part of a craft cheese promotion over in Australia. The Dark Arbok was released through the Hong Kong Pokemon League, and this one actually came with its own little packaging material, so it's pretty unique in that regard. As for the pre-release cards, there are officially 4 cards released, each in advance of their respective sets, as a way of marketing and advertising those sets to the masses. Now, the first of these was the pre-release Clefable, and this one is usually regarded as one of the most, if not most difficult Wizards of the Coast era cards to grade, and currently there are 0 in the population report in PSA 10. Very difficult card to grade. We also have the pre-release Aerodactyl, which has 2 different variants. There's one with the original Galaxy foil, and then one with the Cosmo holofoil pattern. Next, we have the Dark Gyarados pre-release, and finally, the last card to receive a pre-release, at least from the Wizards of the Coast era, was the pre-release Misty Seadra, part of Gym Heroes. Now, if this is too easy for anybody out there and you want some collecting challenge, we could take on perhaps the most difficult collection to finish, and that's if we're including the pre-release Raichu, a card that had been fabled to exist for the longest time as a test run during those early sheets of Clefable cards. But recently, CGC has verified 2 copies of it, tracing back the ownership from Wizards of the Coast employees, and I believe those 2 cards are currently owned by TCA Gaming, Rusty, and David Person, another really large collector out there in this space. I believe there's rumors to be other cards out there, but as far as ones that have actually been traceable, these 2 seem to be the only confirmed copies out there. So if anybody wants that extra challenge, good luck. Anyway, assuming you want to pick up this set without the pre-release Raichu, it's fairly attainable. There's actually only 2 cards that come in over $100, and the first of these is the pre-release Clefable card, and that's because this card is very scarce and difficult to find. This card sells for about $394.39 in near mint condition, and the other one is the Dark Charmeleon with the W stamp. That's because it was a regional release and is often difficult to find as well. This card is $274.50. Every other card in this set, though, can be found for under $50, with most of them being below $25, and considering this set only consists of 11 cards, perhaps 12 if you want both variants of the Aerodactyl pre-release, that's not all too difficult, and you'd feel like you're making progress relatively quickly with each new card that's attained. Anyway, this is a set that I absolutely love. I love the history behind it, and I think it's a good look down memory lane at some of those earliest sets that Pokemon had produced. Our next set worth highlighting is one that I've never fully collected personally. I tend to be a Wizards of the Coast English collector, so the earlier sets were more in my wheelhouse, but one of the sets I've always had tremendous respect for is the Japanese Vending series. Now, the Japanese Vending series were peelable cards that came out of Japanese vending machines, and there were actually 3 different sets available. A set that was printed on blue stock, red stock, and green stock, and so these are known as sets 1, 2, and 3, respectively. Now, the first 2 of these, the blue and the red sets, had 36 unique cards, whereas the final one, the third set, the green set, had 53 cards. And let me tell you, if we're talking about unique artworks and unique history, these are they're it. Now, where do we even begin? I guess we'll start with this. The sheets that these cards are printed on are specific to different Kanto regions, and so if you're purchasing the sheets, not only do you have the cards themselves, but some supplemental material giving you more information about those respective areas. I think that's really cool. It's also worth talking about the peelable nature of these cards. It's unique because many of the cards that are distributed come in packs, but these ones, you have to peel right off the sheet. They actually have a glossy card stock as part of that, which is another thing that makes them interesting. Now, this is probably the best Pokemon marketing tactic that I've ever seen. It's my favorite in my personal opinion. But if you collected the Bill's PC card that was part of Sheet 16 and Sheet 17 of the third series, the green set, and sent it in with select cards using the trade feature like Kadabra or Machoke or Haunter, you would receive back in the mail one of the Masaki Hollows of that card's evolutionary final stage, like Gengar, Alakazam, or Machamp. I think that's a really unique way to promote Pokemon and tie into the mechanic of trading to evolve that we saw in the Game Boy games. So to me, that was brilliant, and it adds further history behind the Vending series. Now, some people will consider those Masaki Hollows as part of the Vending series set, and others don't because they don't come off of the sheets themselves. Assuming that they don't, this is what the pricing looks like for some of the more expensive cards. But the Uyama's Pikachu is the most expensive card, and this is actually for an ungraded raw copy at about $185.49. Most of the other cards, though, appear to be below that $50 mark, with most of them even below $15 a piece. And so it wouldn't take long to start fulfilling a collection of these, and I think in a binder, this would be a really nice set to have to just flip through and see some of the most unique artworks ever produced in Pokemon. So again, it really does check all of the boxes that a collector is hoping to pursue. A little bit of collecting challenge, but still attainable, unique artworks, and then all sorts of history tied in. What more could you want? Finally, I wanted to highlight the Pikachu World Collection promos, and there's actually 2 different iterations of this set. One that was released in 2000, and a second set that was released 10 years later in 2010. Now, the thing that both of these sets have in common is it's a series of Pikachu cards that are published from different languages, celebrating different cultures as well as different geographical locations. Now, the set from 2000 is a 9-card album, and each one of these Pikachu reprints has a Pikachu's tail stamped onto it, bringing about some cohesion to the set. Now, the 2010 set is a little bit different. This set actually had 2 different albums released, a green album and a blue album. The green variant was exclusively released through 7-Eleven stores in Japan, making it the rarer of the 2. Another unique feature, though, is that the 2010 version of the Pikachu World Collection all had unique artworks, and many of these artworks feature the geographical locations in the background. For example, the English Pikachu is featured in front of the Grand Canyon, which I think is fascinating. For those looking to collect the 2010 set, there's also an added challenge of having 2 different Japanese variants. The blue folder and the green folder each have a respectively colored background to the Japanese card, and so if you want to collect the full set, you're going to need 10 cards in total, 2 different copies of the Japanese one, the green version as well as the blue version. As for prices, the 2000 collection is actually very affordable. You can pick up a sealed folder with all 9 cards for about $200, and if you did want to pick up these cards individually for your own binder project, there's only a couple of cards that are over $20. You've got the Birthday Pikachu at about $53.49, and then the Jungle Pikachu for about $39.99. It's a very affordable set and a great way to look back at some of the history with Nintendo's franchise Pokemon. The 2010 set, on the other hand, is a little bit more expensive. Now, I couldn't find raw prices for all of these in near mint condition, so I used PSA 8 copies, which is effectively near mint condition. But anyway, a full portfolio of these, whether it's the blue one or the green one, seems to range from about $500 to $700, so it is noticeably more expensive than its 2000 counterpart. The green Pikachu, the Japanese one, is the most expensive one that I could find. That ran about $125 in a PSA 8. Meanwhile, the Polish Pikachu, which is lying in a bed of roses, which is adorable, is about $77, while the English Pikachu is the third most expensive at $65. Nevertheless, considering this is a 10-card set, not all that expensive to complete, especially for those that are looking for something moderately challenging. Before we conclude, let's bring it back to our opening statement that right now is not the most fun time to be a Pokemon collector, particularly if you're the type of person that likes opening the newest packs and collecting the newest sets. However, Pokemon is such a diverse and historical franchise that there's always amazing things to discover, and that's what I would encourage you all to do when you're in this situation and feeling like you're pressed between a rock and a hard place. I know the present circumstances are tough, but if we can keep that long-term mentality and have patience, it's going to make your appreciation of Pokemon all the more rewarding. Finally, appreciate the artwork. I think that is the purpose why people are drawn to collecting to begin with, is because we have this reaction, an emotional connection to the artwork and to the Pokemon that are inhabiting those pieces of cardboard. So if you can slow down and take the time to appreciate the card for what it is, rather than what it's valued at, I think that's going to make all the difference. Ultimately, when it comes to collecting, there is a distinction between value and worth. Value is the price tag that we put onto cards of what we're willing to pay or willing to sell them for. But worth is that emotional and nostalgic sense of satisfaction that we have when it comes to collecting. You guys got to know the difference. Anyway, these are some of the areas that I think are worth exploring, some of the hidden gems out there, but I welcome all of your ideas down in the comments below. Are there any sets that you think are attainable and would be perfect for new collectors, or those that are looking to take a break from the hysteria of the modern mindset, looking back to something that's perhaps less well-known and more accessible? Let me know. Anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Thank you for sticking around with me here today. I'm Pokemon Classics, reminding you all that the classics never go out of style. We'll see you in the next one, everybody. Till then, stay well, have fun. That's what collecting's all about. Bye, everybody.